I've actually started a little bit of meditation this year, Tony. Finding a little bit more grounding and maybe a little bit more thinking time. So bit of the daydream aspect for me, and tap into some of the other resources that are out there.
Oh, I love it.
Bit more than I have previously in 2020.
And how are you finding that process?
Yeah, it does bring a lot more clarity to what I am and what am I about, and just looking at the whole thing about roles and where I want to be and where I want to spend more time for myself in is bringing other people into doing some of these other tasks that where I want to move away from, and then just reflect on things that I'm good at and things where I want to be positioned for myself personally and what's going to really help the business as well. So
I love it.
It does set you aside to go, okay, hold back, get some time on your own just to reflect on that. So there'll be a lot more in 2021 of that grounded Luke Moroney.
I love it, right? But then the next step beyond that is taking those thoughts and putting them into a plan. And then the step beyond that is then the action on that plan. So it's one thing to talk about, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, et cetera, but when is that happening? Who is going to be doing it? So it's that next level down where I take all those wonderful thoughts. A lot of those thoughts may not come to fruition. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's about going, well, of those 10 thoughts that I have, these are the 5 that in 2021 I'm going to commit to. And in fact, I'm now going to take these 5 and I'm going to prioritize them and put them into some sort of a plan. And so in regards to the 5, I don't have to do them all by the end of January, but if I methodically space things out across the course of the year, then I can make 2021 my biggest year ever, because I'm going to look back in December and I'm going to go, holy wow, I did those 5. Where ordinarily I talk a good game and I don't follow through on them. I have some thoughts and I don't take any action. So it's the next step of taking a thought and turning it into something. And the reality is that everything starts as a thought. Every single thing that we have starts as a thought. This phone that I'm talking on started as a thought. Someone, perhaps Steve Jobs, maybe someone else, had this as a particular thought. They then drew it up, put it into some sort of a challenge the design. They put it into manufacturing and then they sold it. There's a plan to bring this to life. No different to all of our own ideas and initiatives. Turn those thoughts.
Have a think through COVID. Look at Peter V'landys, what he did with the NRL. Put a date on it. Very specific about what he wanted to achieve.
Yeah, correct.
Had a lot of haters. Geez, there were a lot of haters around that. And look at what happened as a result of that. And they were basically the God's gift to sport around the world to take some action around what was going to happen, and eventuated in one code around the world starting to progress with sport, whereas others were like fearful about, challenging the status quo or the governments at that time.
Yes.
Plans, and imagine the plans in place that would have been had to set. Just before you get into...
What's that? Oh, sorry, go. Yep, go.
Joe said, I've certainly appreciated the free coaching session this morning. A number of items have brought me back to attention to reassess my goals. So
good.
Looks like, Tony, you might be sending out a few invoices after this session today.
Terrific. No, look, I'm more than happy. We've done this for 80-something sessions, and, I wouldn't do it if I wasn't happy doing it. So more than happy to give people some guidance and support. And, hey, here's hoping that it ensures that your 2021 is the best year ever. And I do it because I love doing it.
I guess, Tony, just to, give you a free plug while you're giving out free advice, it's one thing to obviously give general advice around what's going on with us, with clients, and what's happening generally with people in business and in other areas of life. But it's about then defining the individual, what's going on for the individual. And you might pick up a couple of pointers here, but you're going to pick up more on a one-to-one basis.
Oh, look, of course. So I do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching. So, yeah, absolutely. I think the link is in the notes that you put up. So click on the link, have a chat to me. More than happy to do it. In fact, at the moment, what we're doing is we're giving people, 20 minutes for free individually. So if nothing else, have 20 minutes with me. Again, the link's in the notes. Book in a session with me. I'll run through your goals, and in 20 minutes, we'll get some clarity. Obviously, there's so much more that I do, but for free, 20 minutes with me, and I'm confident you'll get so much out of that. So thank you for the opportunity, mate. I tend to sort of be a little bit, quieter than I just tend to give here, but more than happy to dive into a full-out plug. Absolutely. But let me go back to Peter V'landys, right? So I love the fact that, you think about the mindset going on. So Peter V'landys was absolutely committed to making this happen, and he had some reasons to do it, some very big reasons, and they were financial reasons, right? So NRL was in a whole world of hurt, and he had all sorts of sponsorship that was in question. So he was absolutely committed, right? He's committed. So let's play through that, right? People are interested in goals. Peter V'landys clearly was committed to making it happen. The other is, and part of that commitment is, he had the haters, right? We talk about the biggest fear that people have is the criticism from other people. Now, if Peter V'landys was like the majority of people and got the haters, he would have then just sat down and said, no, you're probably right. You're probably right. I probably should stop. But he was so committed to doing this thing. And so there's so many wonderful stories out of that we can then apply to our own situations. Had to do something, committed, no ifs, buts, maybes, financial at stake, and he was going to do it come hell or high water. Had the haters, pushed through that. Now where are the haters? The haters are like, oh my gosh, Peter V'landys, let's bow down to the earth that you're walking on, right? Because he pushed through, and that happens so often where if you can just push through, you push through those initial, the haters, the doubters, the people who go, it's never going to happen, you're not good enough, sit down, leave it to someone else, etc., etc. You push through that, you go, you know what, in my mind, this is the right thing for me. My heart tells me it is, and I'm so committed to making it happen. And guess what happens? Then the doubters then start to go, oh my gosh, this is possible. And now what happens is they rally around and go, hey, let's cheer this guy on, or let's cheer this girl on. Let's support them, right? But that's how it works. And so you've got to push through the fear, and Peter V'landys did it. The other thing then, if you think about all the other sporting organisations, is the belief side of things. You touched on it before in regards to your running. It's like, hey, someone else is running 100 days. Why can't I do 365? So someone else in another sporting code, somewhere else in the world, has gone, well, hang on a second, look at NRL. They're doing it. Well, why the hell can't we? And all of a sudden then, AFL got on board, and so many other, sporting bodies then looked at how can we get our own code up and running.
It's a good lesson for everyone watching now that, this is something where you can be inspired in, some of the things that you're doing in your life. When you do have other opinions and judgments that come in, to actually step up that level so much more. Ken Murray says GAP. He does like that acronym. So goals, achievement, and plan. And Ken Murray says Peter V'landys was thinking outside the box and excelled. And he did have that motivation of financial. That was the why behind that, especially. And, get a sense of getting back to some sort of normality as well within life. And
well, the other thing around that is
it did help with individuals seeing sport. And when things were so dour, that they could actually then watch sport on TV or have something to look forward to in a time when things are really tough.
Sure, yeah. The other thing with Peter V'landys is that he got a group of people around him, and the question was a forward-facing question. So what do I mean by that? Quite often people will say, I can't do that, I don't know how to do that, I could never learn that, etc. The question I imagine, and again, I've got nothing to do with the NRL, but the question I imagine was, how do we make this happen? What do we need to do to make this happen by this date? I'm not going to take no for an answer. So let's now get resourceful, and let's now figure this out, and how do we make it happen? So then let's take that analogy back into our own lives, back into our own business. Stop asking the question of, I could never do that, I don't know how to do that, etc. How do I make that happen? How I'm going to set a goal for myself. What are the things that I need to do to achieve that particular goal? And they're forward-facing questions as opposed to questions that look in the opposite direction. You always want to look in a forward direction towards what it is that you want, as opposed to what it is that you don't want. But always ask those questions in that direction.
It makes me think about, you did say something very powerful. How do I make it happen rather than how does it happen? I hear so much when it comes to property investing. How do I get to 5 properties? How do I get to 10 properties in my investment property portfolio? Whereas I start to look at, well, how do you make it happen? You make it happen by the things that you can do daily, the people that you have around you daily, like Ken has said about Peter V'landys, he said tenacity and persistence on a daily basis. That's how you make it happen rather than think about, how does it happen? I see a very distinct difference in the wording of that. And it can be quite powerful, Tony. Just in one word can make the difference.
Well, it's NLP, Luke. It's LL in NLP. It's linguistic. Linguistic is language. So for those who aren't sure what NLP is, it's neuro-linguistic programming. It's brain, language, and how we do things, how we program things. So the L is for linguistics. We often talk about here, be careful what you say to yourself because your mind is listening. Your mind is always listening. And if you say some things to yourself out loud, if you're thinking some certain things, your mind's listening to those. And that's how you have limiting beliefs. That's how you put a ceiling.
The difference is in that one is how do I make it happen rather than how does it happen on a general space? Because then you get the ownership outside rather than have the ownership within you to say, how do I make it happen? Now,
exactly.
As a coach, Tony, as for me, as a buyer's agent helping people create wealth, I guess the expectation for people is how does it happen? How can you make it happen for me? Right? Like you as a coach, how can you make a difference in my life? Rather than on the other stand, how do I make it happen? How do I use you and as a team member to lift my, where I can lift myself, create those ideas and suggestions and thoughts around how can I raise that bar for myself? So
it's a bit
very different in that approach for those two questions.
Absolutely.
How do I make it happen?
Well, it's about accepting responsibility as well. It's about accepting the responsibility that I am where I am because of the person that's staring back at me in the mirror. And if you're not happy with where you're at, if you're not where you want to be, then what can you do about it? Stop blaming the government, stop blaming your employers, stop blaming your family, and start to take ownership for where you're at, because that is the reason that you aren't where you are, is the person that's opposite, that's looking back at you in the mirror. So accept responsibility and get on with it. And that doesn't mean that things are always going to go your way. For example, there's stuff that happens that is genuinely out of our control. Genuinely out of our control. So this weekend here in Brisbane, the UK strain of COVID is in. That has zero to do with me directly. But what can I do about it? Right? So can I sit here all weekend and get anxious and fearful and worry and go, oh my gosh, here we go again. 2021 is going to be worse than 2020. Or can I just go, you know what, I'm going to socially distance. I'm going to make sure that I keep my my healthy diet going. I'm going to look after myself, and I'm going to focus on the things that I can do with my business and make sure that I'm set up for success. And I'll do more things in an online basis so that I can still generate an income through my coaching. That's an example for me, but so many people, and I remember this vividly last March, April, where fear and anxiety set in. Fear and anxiety set in Brisbane on Friday. It was well publicised with the toilet paper. Here we go again. It's we're all out of the toilet paper because people are getting anxious again because we have a scarcity mindset. Now, I rang my wife and I said, sweetheart, just make sure we've got enough for the weekend. So she went and did the groceries, got a few things. But people just go berserk, and it's a scarcity mindset as opposed to having an abundant mindset. They're very, very different things. And so the majority of people have the scarce mindset, fear, anxiety, etc., versus having the abundance of, well, what can I do about this? And if I can't do something about it, then don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Do the things you can, but focus on the things that you can do, you can influence, and work on those as opposed to things that you can't.
Luke Chapman's come on. Good to have you on. And Tony Gallagher says, as Gary Vee says, give away your best ideas.
The whole reason he says that is because people won't act on it. So give away your best ideas, but then people generally won't act on them. And
but
so,
also, Tony, but it builds trust in who you are.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah. So it absolutely builds trust and credibility, etc. But it's about providing stuff for
rather than scarcity.
Yeah,
people holding their cards close to their chest, right? Rather than being out there and saying, well, people will come, they'll still need help, they'll still need that guidance.
100%. My business is flying because people do need that help and assistance, and they do want to take their business to the next level. And as a result, my business is flying because of that. So, but as I said, we've been doing this for 80-something sessions. I've missed a few for various reasons, but I mean, you've been here for all 80. I've been here for about
83, mate. 83.
83. I've been here for, I don't know, 78, 79 of them. But I suppose the point is that, and again, you think back to the consistency and persistence. It's like, well, we started, many, many years ago, and just started as, we never thought that we'd do 80 sessions. We just started as having a chat, and it's morphed into what it is today, and I'm excited about where it's headed. So, it's a case of, just give. Come on here, help some people. And if people want to take some of the advice, hey, that's awesome. If people don't want to take the advice, hey, that's awesome, because I get to live my life the way that I want, regardless of all that.
Absolutely. Sean says, with living in Victoria, we had to make sure that we had an abundant mindset just to keep toilet paper in the house. Good on you, Sean. Tony says, it also brings attention to the value you can add and support. Correct, Luke? I like the idea. So it is that, where that you can create that trust, you create a sense of giving, then more people will follow that. So I guess that's a message to everyone. If you're abundant in your mindset, then chances are that you'll get more than you actually think, if you opposed to holding your cards close to your chest.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, mate. It's about give, and always be giving and helping people move forward, and and that's what it's all about. So I love it. I love to live my life that way, as opposed to being scarce, as opposed to being fearful, as opposed to being anxious. I want to be able to help people, move forward, and it's a privilege that I get to do that.
That's great. All right, guys, that's the wrap up for today. We really wanted to get across that idea about getting back into work, because it is a little bit of a struggle for people, but maybe you can put those, simple strategies around, which we talked about, maybe some sort of strategy session, maybe go into 20-minute coaching with Tony for free before he gets into deep diving into, if you go on one of his programs. So that can be an idea for you. Think about the focus and motivation that you have through 2021. Now, a lot of people thought that 2021, ultimately early December, when things weren't going pretty well with COVID, that we're going to have a bigger and better year. But it's about going to be a constant reset all the time, and making sure that you are thinking above what is going on and what you can't control. So that can be a big, maybe you have to slightly pivot what's going on, or bring things more online, or make better connections via the phone or via Zoom and other means as well. Ken Murray says, great session. Well done, guys, says Sean. Great session as always. Been cleaning the house for sale during the whole session. So multitasking a little bit there. But which is good for Sean. So guys, any final words, Tony, before we wrap it up for today?
Well, I just want to touch on the COVID thing, Luke. I think COVID's going to be around for a long, long time. So, if we thought it was going to be different in 2021 versus last year, it's not going to be. So then you touched on the word of last year, which is pivot. I think it's a fine word. Others, but it was just everyone uses it. That's all. But the point is that it is going to be around. Accept that it's going to be around. But that doesn't mean that you need to have a dreadful year. It means that you need to adapt. It means that you need to recognise that it's going to be here, but what can I do to make sure that I make 2021 an awesome, awesome year, as opposed to the people who go, oh my gosh, I can't wait for 2020 to end. Well, guess what? We're going through it. We're going to go through it all again. I know there's vaccines out there, but there's new strains and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it's about accepting that it's here, recognising there's some things that I can do, but there's a lot that I can't in relation to it, and I'm just going to focus on what it is that I can do.
Tony, is how do I make it happen, like we talked about earlier?
Yeah, responsibility.
How do I make it happen rather than how does it happen?
Yeah, accept responsibility.
Make it happen for myself.
I love it.
What we're all about.
I look forward to seeing that post come up in your social feed this week.
I wrote it down, mate. Come on. You know what I mean?
Too funny. No, very good. So thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Good session. Bye, everyone. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy your week. Bye.